So I am back searching the internet, and this time I am looking for some potato inspiration because it is potato harvest season here at the studio. I am just swimming in potatoes, and I have found 4 very exciting recipes that all have some very interesting and unique preparations that are new to me, but to be honest, they all look insanely delicious. So I'm gonna study up on these recipes, I'm gonna try them out in real life, and we will see if these viral potato recipes are worth the hype.
All right, so first we've got to harvest some potatoes, and luckily I have a bunch growing right now. I planted these maybe 3-4 months ago, and they're still about a month or 2 away from really developing a thicker skin so I can store them. But I can harvest these now for some fresh new potatoes because we're gonna eat these right away. Oh yeah, booyah, first shot. First potato, look at that. Already a better harvest than last year. All right, so if we dig this up, so you can see here is the seed potato that I cut in half and planted a few months ago. And look at all these beauties.
All right, up first, look at these things right here. We have thick potato noodles. By 2 plaid aprons, these noodles got 25 million views, which by the looks of them, I mean, I am intrigued. Let's take a look.
Let's make these viral potato noodles that are thicker than my fingers.
So basically, they're pretty simple. You boil potatoes, you add starch in, you roll them out, boil them, you make a delicious, oily, infused sauce, pour that over the noodles, and boom, you're good to go. Now, I've never seen anything like this. I've never tried anything quite like this. So for me, when I was searching for potato ideas, this was a must try. And the video was super short, so I actually turned to her blog post for most of the measurements and the details of the recipe. And it turns out there's a good bit of details to really get these noodles right. She used 1 big russet potato. I'm just using a few small ones here, which I peeled, then chopped up into pieces, threw them in some boiling water until they were fork tender, and then I mashed them until they were very smooth. Then I added some salt, and the key ingredient here is potato starch, and it requires a bunch of it. I dumped in 1.5 cups. And then you work that into a dough, which is a little bit dry at this point, so you add warm water to get the consistency. And she didn't say to do this, but I just used the warm starchy potato liquid, which seemed logical. And this creates a nice smooth dough, kind of like a soft, pliable Play-Doh. And once you have that dough, then you can roll out your thick noodles, which was a bit of a challenge.
They're rolling, oh, they're very fragile. Oh, I might need more water. That didn't work. They say you gotta do it when it's very warm. Try again. Better, still falling apart a little bit. It's like rolling out a long log of Play-Doh. You know what, I'm just gonna go right into, oh yeah, I'm gonna try to boil it.
So after some initial breakage of the noodles, I started to get into a nice flow, and I found that you have to have the water boiling right next to the rolling station, and once you roll 1 noodle, you pop that right in before it breaks. Because once you get that noodle into the boiling water, it instantly solidifies and won't break. So I just kept rolling out 1 noodle at a time, popping it in the hot water, and then just like a potato gnocchi, once these float to the top, they are good to go. So after I got all of the noodles cooked, it was time to make the sauce, which started out with some fresh green onion, some chopped garlic, and she used cilantro. I had basil in the garden, so I just chopped that up and threw it in. A few scoops of gochujaro, or Korean chili flakes, a little sprinkle of sugar and some salt, and then some soy sauce and black vinegar. And then you bring your oil up to just a gentle smoke, pour that over the ingredients to get a nice infusion, and once you have your sauce, you dump that on the thick noodles and you're good to go. Holy hell, that was not easy to produce these. I'm gonna rate all of these potato dishes in 2 categories, difficulty and taste. Difficulty on that one out of 10 was a 9.5. If you were a Play-Doh enthusiast as a child, this dish is for you. If not, stay away. My kitchen is also like destroyed, and I was closely monitoring that recipe on her blog, but was it worth it? Just the fact that these hold up as full, thick noodles is impressive. Okay, the sauce is good. A little sweet, super salty, aromatic. I personally love chewy noodles. People are not used to them in Western cuisine, but they exist in all varieties over in the East, and I love them. And I did not expect these to have that type of chew. Wow, I just forgot that these are completely made of potato. That is crazy. They taste like they have flour in them. That is crazy. It's one of those dishes that's gonna take probably a few days to really settle in to see if the effort is worth making them again, but the taste, I'm giving a 9. They're incredible. So if you want a fun project, maybe with your kids, try these out. So before we get back into the recipes, I want to take a minute to tell you about today's sponsor, which is Peak. Now, I've been drinking both coffee and matcha for many years now. I love them both very much, but I did stop drinking coffee 5 months ago. And the reason for that is my wife and I found that when we were drinking coffee, we would have these really bad crashes around 3 to 4 p.m. For all you parents out there, you know that that is a vital time to have energy so you can take care of your kids. And I found for me, by far, the best substitute for a morning routine is matcha. And Peak Sun Goddess Matcha is ceremonial grade, it's organic, and it's absolutely delicious. I find you get enough caffeine to really feel a nice burst of energy, but it also contains L-theanine, which is a calming ingredient, and I find by drinking matcha, I just get a much cleaner caffeinated experience where I have a ton of energy throughout the day without the intense crash. And I'm a huge fan of Peak Starter Kit. You get the pre-portioned sachets of matcha. So all you have to do is just dump them in a cup, add some hot water, whisk it up for perfect matcha every time. I've done all the traditional preparations over the years, but I find doing it like this works great for my hectic lifestyle with kids in the morning. I actually took this set with me on a recent trip. It's super easy to travel with, which made it possible to just keep up my morning matcha routine without having to buy anything or miss a beat. And if you use the link below, you can get 15% off your order of Peak Matcha, plus a free frother and cup. Now back to some potatoes. So when I was searching for potato ideas, I kept seeing this Korean cheesy fried potato pancake thing. I've never been to Korea, but I did some research. This is a popular street food. Sometimes they are savory, sometimes they are sweet. And this right here, it's a 12-second video, will give you a general idea of what you're after.
Potato cheese pancake.
Stuff with cheese, fry, boom, you're good to go. Now, when I was actually looking into the recipe, I realized that it was way too similar to the thick noodles that I just made, so I canceled it. I felt like it was too repetitive. But when I was making those noodles, since they were difficult to roll, I didn't roll out all of the dough, and I had a little extra. And I figured I would use that dough to try these Korean pancakes. Now, the only real difference between these doughs is sometimes cornstarch is used instead of potato starch, and also a little sugar gets added to the dough, but I still think we'll get the general idea from using the noodle dough. So I stuffed in some cheese. I'm using some queso fresco, which is from a recipe that's coming up. And I formed these into little cakes, fried them in oil on both sides until they were crispy. So my laziness on the last recipe for not rolling out all of the noodles actually paid off. Having extra dough, I was able to create these beauties. Just 2 of them, but that's all I need to try this recipe. Difficulty, much easier than the last one. I'll say 4.5. Still gotta make the dough. Hot. I think I needed some pulley cheese in there. Actually, I have some sauce left over as well. This definitely needs a dip in that. There we go. They're fun. They have a very similar texture as the noodles, nice and chewy. I do much prefer the noodles over these. These, of course, are not an exact recipe, but having said that, I will give them a 6.5. So the day has finally come where I try this thing right here, the 1,000-layer potato. If you've swiped through food content on the internet, you've probably seen this at some point. I've always been interested, and this video seems like the perfect time to try. Let's check out this recipe by Poppy Cooks.
Can we all just take a moment of silence for this?
Yep.
The crunch.
Oh yeah. Looks incredible. And I really like her recipe. There's a lot of different forms of this 1,000-layer potato. This is really simple. She just uses beef fat. She adds that in. It gets layered, then it gets cooked. Then it gets pressed down overnight in the fridge. and fried up. So I actually don't have a mandolin in my kitchen. I think I just have too much trauma from my catering days to own one of those things. But my food processor has a slicer attachment that can be adjusted to whatever thickness you want. And since these are new potatoes, the skins are really thin and they basically rub off. So there's really no need to peel them. Also, fun fact, the reason you can't store these potatoes because they don't have that thick skin. And I picked a bunch of potatoes that were on the smaller side that would fit through the hopper of this food processor, and I sliced them all up. Now I did have some homemade beef fat or beef tallow, and I got a bunch of that in a bowl and microwaved that until it was melted. Now one thing I've never seen is a recipe that uses a bunch of smaller sliced potatoes. Generally they take bigger potatoes and layer them nicely just like this. So this is a bit of an experiment, but I have high hopes. So I dumped the melted fat over the potatoes, added some salt, and gave this all a mix. I cut out some parchment paper, popped that in a little cake tin, and stuffed in those potatoes pretty tightly. And then I cut another piece of parchment paper, laid that over the top, and I got this cooking low and slow. This goes in the oven for 3 hours at 300 degrees Fahrenheit until it looks like this. Now to weigh it down, I actually cut out a piece of scrap wood, a little bit extra, but I figured, hey, this is a nice thing to have if I make these again. I laid that on top and I put a heavy mortar and pestle down and popped that in the fridge overnight to solidify into a nice potato block. Oh yeah. That's a brick. All right, 1,000 layer potato. Maybe 100 layers. So I did cut the larger chunks, which you see in most recipes, and I heated up some oil and got them frying off nice and crispy. Alrighty then. Now that is a thing of beauty. Took a little longer than I thought to fry. Right off the bat, difficulty 9. It's not that difficult to make, just is a lot of preparation. It takes, obviously, it's a 2-day process for a French fry or a hash brown. Let's try it straight up first without ketchup. I don't even know how to, just gonna break it in half. Wow, look at the steam that's released in there. You can see all those beautiful layers. Here we go. Wow, whoa. Kind of wanted to not like this because it was so difficult to make. All the videos on this are super short. So you just see the initial reaction, you don't get a review. Oh my God. Imagine a McDonald's hash brown meets a croissant. It tastes like a beautiful hash brown with these incredible flaky layers. Like, look at this. So much better than I thought, to be honest. So they take a long time to make. It's a good bit of effort, but it would definitely be quicker the second time now that I've done it. And the taste, 9.5. That's unbelievable. All right, and finally from Fredsters, you have this beautiful creation. These tacos got 4.2 million views, and they look insane.
Let's make one of the easiest and tastiest dinners ever, tacos dorados con papa. These are fried hard tacos stuffed with mashed potatoes and queso fresco. These are leftover.
So basically, very simple. You take some corn tortillas, you stuff in mashed potatoes that has cheese in them, you fry them up, you add a bunch of toppings, and boom, delicious leftover taco goodness. And I'm picking out some nice medium, creamy style potatoes from the garden. And again, since the skins are super thin, I'm not worrying about peeling them, but I will slice them up into chunks, and I got them in some water boiling off until they were fork tender. And then they go into a bowl, and I mash these up. They don't have to be super smooth since they're just a stuffing. And I added some salt, and just like the recipe, I'm using queso fresco, which is a Mexican style fresh crumbly cheese that is so delicious. And one addition that he didn't add is some green onion, but since I have so much in the garden right now, I figured it would make a nice addition. And I had made some homemade corn tortillas the other day, and the key that Fredster said is to steam them in a wet paper towel until they're pliable enough to stuff so they don't break on you. Now I'm gonna be pan frying these in oil just like Fredster did, but I did wanna try to air fry a few to see if there was any differences. So I popped a few in the air fryer for a few minutes, and they took a lot less oil, but about the same time to cook as the pan fried ones. All right, we'll start with this shallow fried one. Difficulty 3.5. This one's simple. It reminds me of like a fried rice where you're taking these common leftovers, in this case Mexican cuisine, and turning them into something glorious. More salsa. Oh, there's sort of some quesadilla elements to it because of the cheese and just the gooiness of the potato. And I love quesadillas, but it's a little bit lighter because the gooiness is not just coming solely from cheese. You're getting it from the potato and the cheese. That's amazing. Air fried, let's try this. Same exact oil, avocado oil, just a little bit less of it. Wow, I think I prefer less oil, and I would make that a lot more because it requires less oil and it's still delicious. So air fried, start with pan fried.
I feel like it could be saltier. Like, it's almost like too mild. Like, I wish there was chorizo or something inside.
The first thing that I thought when I tasted it was like bacon.
Yeah.
Like bacon bits in there. But I don't know, it kind of grew on me because it almost has that quesadilla vibe because it's just like a creamy interior. So at first I was missing something and then I'm like, I don't know, this is
I
kinda
would really
good.
like it as like a breakfast food with eggs
Oh, eggs in there.
and bacon.
Yeah, like eggs, bacon, and potato. Yeah, that's really nice. I like that. Try the air fry. Tell me if you notice any big difference.
I prefer it because it doesn't taste like oil. This
Yes,
one tastes like oil. This one tastes like tortilla and potato and salsa.
I totally
Yeah.
agree. That's exactly
I don't think
how I
there's
feel.
any reason to
Not
deep
air
fry it if you can just eat it like that.
Yeah.
So I'm giving this one an 8 on the taste scale, and if you want more videos in this testing series, click right here.